The off-season in Driftwood Bay was a peculiar kind of magic, a stillness that wrapped the town like a heavy quilt. The summer tourists, with their boisterous laughter and sunburned shoulders, had long since packed their rental cars and fled back to their ordinary lives, leaving behind only the crunch of seashells underfoot and the faint echo of carnival tunes that no longer played. The boardwalk, a weathered ribbon of grey planks stretching along the coastline, stood sentinel over a deserted beach, its arcades shuttered, its ice cream stands boarded up. The ocean, ever restless, churned secrets to the town in whispers of foam and salt. And the locals, those who stayed year-round, knew better than to listen too closely. I was 17 that fall, a lanky kid named Owen Harper, with a mop of sandy hair and a restless streak that my father said would either make me a poet or a drifter. We lived on Driftwood Lane, a narrow street of saltbox houses just 2 blocks from the shore. Our house, a faded grey 2-story with creaking shutters, had been in the family for 3 generations. A stubborn relic of my great-grandfather's stubborn dream to carve out a life by the sea. I'd grown up here, my childhood stitched with summers of kite flying and winters of storm watching. The ocean as much a part of me as my own heartbeat. I didn't surf, too clumsy for that, but I knew the tides, the rhythm of the gulls, the way the wind carried the scent of kelp and freedom. That October, Driftwood Bay felt emptier than usual. A late-season hurricane had grazed the coast, not enough to devastate, but enough to scare off the last tourists and leave the town brooding under a sky the color of tarnished silver. I was a senior, counting down the days to graduation, and I'd taken to wandering the boardwalk at night to clear my head. School was a grind. College applications loomed like a guillotine, and my parents were distracted. My dad buried in his repair shop. My mom lost in her endless knitting projects. The walk was my escape, a place where I could breathe without the weight of expectations pressing down. I wasn't much for gadgets, but I carried a cheap digital watch to track time and a small sketchbook where I'd scribble half-formed thoughts or doodles of the waves. No phone, too distracting. And the signal was garbage anyway. My only other companion was a single house key, tucked into the pocket of my worn corduroy jacket. My parents, a cautious pair who'd grown up hearing tales of break-ins by off-season vagrants, insisted the house be locked at all times, even though Driftwood Bay was the kind of town where neighbors left pies on porches without fear of theft. I grumbled about it, but complied. The key, a cold reminder of rules I didn't quite understand. That night, I set out around 9 p.m., the air sharp with the bite of fall. The boardwalk was empty, the street lamps, spaced too far apart to be truly comforting, casting a pale, lonely glow. My sneakers scuffed against the planks, a steady rhythm that blended with the distant crash of waves. The fog was heavy, curling around the pilings like ghostly fingers, and the smell of salt and damp wood filled my lungs. I walked north, toward the old pier where the fishing boats used to dock before the town's fleet dwindled to a single trawler. The pier was a relic now, half its boards missing, a skeleton of rusted nails and memories. I'd gone maybe a mile when I felt it, a prickle at the base of my skull, the unshakable sense that I wasn't alone. I paused, breath clouding in the chilly air, and glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. Just the boardwalk stretching into the fog, the lamps flickering like tired eyes. I shook it off, chalking it up to the eerie quiet, and kept walking. But the feeling persisted, a weight that grew heavier with each step. I quickened my pace, the slap of my sneakers louder now, and risked another look back. There, maybe 50 yards behind, stood a figure. A man. I thought, though the fog blurred his edges. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing me. His silhouette was wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin, like a scarecrow draped in a coat too big for its frame. My heart stuttered, but I told myself it was nothing. A local, maybe, out for a late stroll. Driftwood Bay was safe, wasn't it? I turned forward, shoving my hands into my pockets, and walked faster. A few minutes later, I couldn't resist looking again. He was closer now, maybe 30 yards, still motionless, still staring. The fog made it hard to see his face, but I caught the glint of something, eyes, maybe, or glasses, reflecting the lamplight. My mouth went dry. I broke into a jog, the boardwalk's uneven planks jarring my knees. The pier was still a half-mile off. My car, a beat-up hatchback I'd inherited from my uncle, parked at its base. I just had to get there. The sound came then, faint but unmistakable. Footsteps. Not in sync with mine, but close enough to make my blood run cold. I glanced back, and he was closer still, 20 yards now, standing as if he'd never moved at all. How was that possible? I hadn't seen him walk, hadn't heard him run, yet there he was, a shadow stitched to the fog. Panic clawed at my chest, and I sprinted, my breath ragged, my legs burning. The boardwalk felt endless, a treadmill of wood and fear. Every few seconds, I threw a glance over my shoulder. Each time, he was closer. 15 yards, 10, 5. Always standing, always watching. The pier loomed ahead, its skeletal frame a beacon in the mist. My car was there, its faded blue paint a promise of safety. I fumbled for my key, fingers numb with cold and terror, and clicked the unlock button. The headlights flashed, a brief burst of light that cut through the fog. I yanked the door open, threw myself inside and and slammed it shut, locking it with a trembling hand. I jammed the key into the ignition, the engine coughing to life. As I shifted into drive, I looked up, and my heart stopped. He was there, standing directly in front of the car, right where I'd been moments before. The fog parted just enough for me to see him, tall, gaunt, his face obscured by a hood. But his eyes, they burned, pale and unblinking, like twin moons in a starless sky. I didn't wait to see more. I cranked the wheel, tires screeching as I peeled out, nearly clipping a lamppost as I sped away. The drive home was a blur. I ran stop signs, swerved around corners, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him standing in the road. When I reached Driftwood Lane, I skidded into the driveway, bolted to the front door, and pounded until my mother, bleary-eyed and wrapped in a robe, let me in. She started to scold me, but stopped when she saw my face. Pale, sweat-soaked, my eyes wild with fear. "Owen, what happened?" she asked, her voice sharp with worry. I spilled it all, the words tumbling out in a frantic rush. The man, the footsteps, the way he seemed to move without moving. My father, roused by the commotion, listened in silence, his jaw tight. He didn't say much, just grabbed his phone and called the sheriff's office. Deputy Clara Henshaw, a no-nonsense woman who'd known me since I was a kid, arrived within the hour. She took my statement, her pen scratching against a notepad, and promised to check the boardwalk. The next morning, Clara called. They'd found nothing. No footprints. No signs of anyone on the boardwalk. The fog had been thick, she said, and visibility was poor. Maybe I'd seen a drifter, someone passing through, spooked by my sudden sprint. She didn't say it outright, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. The kind adults use when they think a kid's imagination has run wild. I wanted to argue, to insist it was real, but the marks on my story, my shaking hands, my racing heart, weren't evidence. For a few days, life settled back into its rhythm. School, homework, my parents' worried glances over dinner. I avoided the boardwalk, sticking to the streets closer to home for my walks. But the memory of that night clung to me, a shadow I couldn't shake. I started sketching him in my notebook, those pale eyes, that too long frame, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. The drawings were crude, but they felt like a tether, a way to keep the fear from swallowing me whole. Then, a week later, it happened again. I was at the town's only diner, a greasy spoon called Salty's, grabbing a milkshake with my friend Lila. She was a year younger, a wiry girl with freckles and a laugh that could cut through any gloom. We were crammed into a booth, debating whether the new sci-fi movie was worth the drive to the next town, when I glanced out the window. The diner faced the boardwalk, its neon sign casting a red glow across the planks. And there, under a lamppost, he stood. The milkshake glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the table. Lila yelped, but I barely heard her. He was there, the same man, his hood up, his eyes fixed on me through the fogged-up window. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared, his presence a weight that pressed against my chest. I grabbed Lila's arm, my voice a hoarse whisper. "Do you see him?" She followed my gaze, squinting. "Who? That guy by the lamp?" Relief flooded me. She saw him too. But then she frowned. "He's just standing there, probably waiting for someone." "Owen, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't explain, not without sounding unhinged. I mumbled something about feeling sick and dragged her out of the diner, my eyes locked on the figure until we turned the corner. When I glanced back, he was gone. The lamppost standing alone in the mist. That night, I told my parents everything, the diner, the boardwalk, the way he seemed to follow me without moving. My mother's face paled, and she insisted we call Clara again. My father, usually the skeptic, didn't argue. Clara came by, her expression grim. She checked the boardwalk again, found nothing, but this time, she didn't dismiss me. She mentioned a string of odd reports. Locals hearing footsteps at night, seeing shadows that vanished when approached. Nothing concrete, but enough to make her uneasy. "Stay off the boardwalk for now," she said. "And keep your phone on you, Owen. Just in case." I nodded, but the phone felt useless. What could I say? "There's a man who doesn't move but gets closer every time I look away." It sounded like a nightmare, not a police report. Still, I started carrying it, along with a flashlight I dug out of the garage. I stopped sketching him, afraid that putting him on paper would make him more real. The weeks that followed were tense. Driftwood Bay, once my sanctuary, felt like a trap. The fog grew thicker, the nights colder, and the town seemed to shrink, its streets too quiet, its shadows too deep. I stuck to the daylight, avoided the boardwalk, but the fear lingered. Lila tried to distract me with movie nights and bad jokes, but even she noticed the change in me. Jumpier, quieter, always glancing over my shoulder. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late November, the day before Thanksgiving. My parents had gone to the next town for a last-minute grocery run, leaving me alone in the house. I was in the living room, half watching a sitcom rerun when the power flickered. The TV went dark, the hum of the fridge silenced. I cursed, assuming the storm brewing outside had knocked out a line, and grabbed my flashlight. The beam cut through the dimness as I checked the fuse box in the basement. Nothing was tripped, which meant it was a town-wide outage. I was about to head upstairs when I heard it. A soft thump, like something heavy falling against the front door. My heart lurched. I crept up the stairs, flashlight shaking in my hand, and peered through the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty porch. The street beyond, shrouded in fog. But as I turned away, another thump, louder this time, rattled the door. I froze, my breath shallow. A third thump, deliberate, like a fist striking wood. I backed away, clutching the flashlight, my mind racing. The phone was upstairs, but the door was solid oak. The locks new. I could wait it out, right? Then I saw it. A shadow moving across the living room window, tall and thin, its edges blurred by the curtains. My stomach dropped. He was here. Not on the boardwalk, not in town, but here, at my home. I bolted upstairs, grabbed my phone, and dialed Clara. The line rang once, twice, then cut to static. I tried again. Same result. The storm, I thought, or something worse. I hid in my room, barricading the door with my desk, the flashlight trained on the window. The house was silent, but the silence was wrong, heavy, like the air before a lightning strike. I don't know how long I sat there, heart pounding, when I heard the creak of floorboards downstairs. Not the house settling, not the wind. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving through the living room. I clamped a hand over my mouth, stifling a sob. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, I thought he'd left. Then, a voice, low, raspy, barely human, called my name. Owen. It wasn't a question, not a shout, just my name, spoken with a calm that chilled me to the bone. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The footsteps started again, closer now, climbing the stairs. I scrambled to the window, fumbling with the latch, but it was stuck, rusted from years of salt air. The footsteps stopped outside my door, and the knob rattled, slow at first, then faster, like he was testing it. I grabbed the flashlight, ready to swing it like a club, when the power surged back on. The room flooded with light, the desk lamp blazing. The rattling stopped, and the house fell silent. I waited, every muscle taut, but nothing came. No footsteps, no voice, no shadow. After what felt like hours, I worked up the courage to move the desk and crack the door open. The hallway was empty, the house still. I checked every room, flashlight in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. Nothing was out of place. No broken windows, no forced locks. But on the front porch, I found something that made my blood run cold. A single seashell, smooth and white, placed dead center on the doormat. It wasn't one of ours. Wasn't one I'd ever seen on Driftwood Bay's shores. It felt like a message, though I didn't know what it meant. When my parents got home, I told them everything. They believed me this time, the seashell enough to convince even my father. We called Clara, who took the shell as evidence and promised to patrol the area. She dug deeper, pulling old records, and found something that made my skin crawl. 20 years ago, a man named Elias Ward had lived in Driftwood Bay, a recluse, tall and gaunt, who'd vanished after a string of break-ins. Locals whispered he'd been obsessed with the ocean, collecting shells, watching people from the shadows. He was never caught, never seen again. But some swore he still haunted the town, a ghost in the fog. Clara couldn't prove it was Elias, but she stationed a deputy near our house for a week. Nothing happened. No shadows, no footsteps, no shells. The town moved on. Thanksgiving came and went, and winter settled in, blanketing Driftwood Bay in frost and quiet. I started to relax, telling myself it was over, that maybe I'd imagined the worst of it. But I was wrong. In January, Lila found something while walking her dog on the beach. A rusted tin box, half buried under a dune. Inside were shells, dozens of them, each with a name scratched into its surface. One was mine, another was hers. There were others too. Names of locals, kids I knew from school, people who'd lived here years ago. Clara took the box, sent it to a lab, but the results were inconclusive. No prints, no DNA, just the names, carved with a precision that suggested care, not haste. The discovery shook the town. People started locking their doors, avoiding the boardwalk, whispering about the shell man. Clara increased patrols, but no one was caught. No new clues surfaced. I stopped walking alone, started carrying a pocket knife, my sketches replaced by lists of places I felt safe. Lila and I grew closer, bound by the shared fear, but even her laughter couldn't erase the shadow that followed me. Spring came, then summer, and Driftwood Bay filled with tourists again. Their noise, a temporary shield against the quiet that had betrayed us. I graduated, accepted a college offer far inland, eager to leave the ocean behind. The last time I saw the boardwalk was the day I left, my car packed, my parents waving from the porch. I drove past the pier, the dunes, the lamps that had once lit my terror, and felt a pang, not of fear, but of loss. Driftwood Bay was home, flawed and haunted, but home. Years later, I got a call from Clara. They'd found a body, washed up on the shore, skeletal and clad in a tattered coat. No ID, no match in any database, but clutched in its hand was a shell with my name on it. The coroner estimated the man had been dead for months, maybe years, his bones scoured by the sea. Clara couldn't say it was Elias, couldn't say it wasn't, but she told me to stay safe, to keep my doors locked, even inland. I don't know who he was or why he chose me. I don't know if he's gone or if the ocean still carries his shadow. But sometimes, when the wind smells of salt, I hear my name, whispered in a voice that isn't human. And I check my locks, just in case.